is there one piece of advice about courage and leadership you could give to the next generation of women leaders? What would that be?
Life is about learning new things. And often I think they present opportunities more than challenges. If you have an open mind and you're flexible and you adapt to change, I think you need to embrace your uniqueness. The fact that you are you and whatever journey you're in is unique, it's special, it's different. You need to learn from your mistakes and challenges, but don't fixate yourself on the negative. Move on from there and practice mindfulness. At times, courage is not something that you do consciously. It just is a part of your being, because I think women are more resilient in that way. Each experience is different, which is why I said, you need to embrace your uniqueness. No two situations are ever the same for two different people, but learn from each other, grow, look at it as an opportunity. Like I said, don't fixate yourself on the negative. Move on. That's the only way to grow and learn and develop. This constant awareness that is needed when you're in a transformative journey, and entrepreneurship is transformative, is to monitor your skills and your outcomes and move your approach. Shift around, be flexible, be adaptable. It's the joy of unexpected turns.
Hello, welcome to the Summit series of Voices of Courage Asia, where we celebrate leaders, changemakers, and visionaries who embodied courage and drive transformative impact. So I'm your host, Joanne Lee, and in this special series, we explore stories of resilience, leadership, and also the bold steps taken to create meaningful change. And today's guest is a powerhouse in public policy, social innovation, and business ecosystem. As an ex-CEO of a global commerce chamber for female entrepreneurs, she has influenced economic policies, mentored emerging leaders, and championed initiatives that drive sustainable growth. Recognized as one of the influential femme of 2024, she continues to make a global impact. So, Ambika, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you. So for our new listeners, maybe you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your journey.
I've had a bit of a checkered sort of journey. I've worked in the not-for-profit my entire life. So that's about 26 plus years now. And I've worked in different kinds of organizations with different sort of thematics. So it's been very exciting, very challenging. Every role's been a new role. So taking cue from the summit and the keyword there, courage, I think it's been very courageous in the way I've moved from one role to the other. I wasn't working in entrepreneurship specifically when I took on the role of the CEO of a global chamber. It was very exciting, but I think life is about learning new things. And often I think they present opportunities more than challenges. If you have an open mind and you're flexible and you adapt to change.
So thank you so much for the introduction. Right. So can you share with us a pivotal moment where courage transformed how you lead and also approach challenges?
So in my professional journey, I have to admit, I've had a lot of such interesting moments, but I just want to make a distinction between the fact that there can be challenges that come to you in a physical form, and then there are others which are mental, and there are others which sort of lend to your emotional, sort of well-being. And in my early days, working in India in the not-for-profit meant going into back of beyond extremely remote areas, villages where there was no connectivity. There were no cell phones back in the day. And on one such, sort of visit, there was a civil uprising. There are protests in every country. And at that point in time, there was one that was happening here as well. And I had to make it to this point because there was a community group that was waiting for us to be there. And we did not expect a problem on the highway because we thought that route was clear. And I was alone in the car, and suddenly we were surrounded by this mob. And now I can talk about it very plainly and in a manner that is unaffected. But at that point in time, it was easily about 100 people, 100 men actually, not just people. So as this very young 20-something girl sitting in that car with no connectivity, no one to reach out to, surrounded by 100 men, honest to God, I felt that was it. I was so ready to be violated, and I was so ready to, this was my end. I owe a lot of my sort of gratitude to the driver, but I think I just held myself together. At times, courage is not something that you do consciously. It just is a part of your being, because I think women are more resilient in that way. Also, your upbringing. So I went to a residential finishing school, which kind of teaches you to be, self-sufficient and disciplined and all of that very early in the age. So anyway, luck was on my side. We got out of that scenario. We went for our work. We did that, came back. But then after I came back, in the organization, I started a dialogue on safety for women when they're traveling to remote locations, to countries that might be, under civil strife, war, so on and so forth. And then, in another organization that I was, we ended up making it a global policy. So all I'm trying to say is that the challenges can vary. The other very striking thing all through my career that has happened is, and again, I learned very young because I had very good managers. It's not every day that in your first job and within 6 months of being in your job, you're sent off to Washington, D.C. at the World Bank to make a presentation on behalf of the organization. How many people get that? It doesn't happen. It's not normal. So I've always raised my voice to support young people, and it's received all sorts of pushback at various stages. But I found ways and means to ensure that, they get a seat at the table, or they get a voice, or they're informal systems that allow them to contribute. But I think it's very important, more so today than ever before, to take the old and the new together. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it is about looking at courage in various different ways.
Yes, it does. I mean, I like the interesting perspective that you brought out. It's not just mental, or it's also physical. And at times, when the tough gets going, or when we are faced with danger, actually we rise up and realize that we can be very resilient and to face that challenge that we have.
Just to add, especially in the social sector, because we're working to impact and bring about social change, and a lot of the things there are unknown. There's a lot of things you cannot be prepared for, unlike the corporate world. So yeah, there are challenges all the time.
Yes, and also I love it that and despite facing that challenge, you actually went back, right, and then you had a dialogue, you did discussion, you share with different people to show them, let them be aware that these things are really happening to females. And then eventually you are a change maker because you actually make global policy so that females are we feel safe. We want to do things, but we also must learn how to protect ourselves. I think that's very important, that we must learn for the females who are maybe thinking of embarking into similar roles or maybe similar work. Okay. And I love to actually find out from you. Do you have mentors yourself? Are you mentoring someone? And if you have, how did that mentor actually, transform you? Maybe you can share with us.
I've been very lucky. I've had mentors all along. Almost all of I haven't changed too many workplaces. And like I said, in my very first job, I was very lucky to work with someone who supported young people and sort of taught us this newer way of being unique, of innovating all the time. And my manager from that role has stayed on with me through my professional journey. I reach out to that person continuously. So it's very useful to have somebody to bounce your ideas off. In my own space, from when I first started managing teams, I've always believed in a leadership style that is the mentorship style, because often as I was growing up and as I was sort of going up a certain ladder, I always used to say that I wish someone had told me this. I wish I knew this, and of course, kids are way smarter today. They have access to a lot of information. But that's one thing that has been very close to my heart. So I have been in mentorship roles for the last 10, 12 years now, both in structured mentoring programs. I'm currently a startup mentor with a government setup here in India. I also teach at 2 different universities. So, again, I mentor guide to students. I think mentor is a very loaded sort of a word. I mean, it's more like a, like hand-holding and helping someone through their small challenges. So yeah, I feel it's very important to have somebody to bounce your doubts and ideas off. And increasingly so. I mean, this is almost like our moral duty to be available to the next generation so that they don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Wow, you're such a kind soul and very generous person who wants to give back. And I agree with you. We all have our blind spots. Having a mentor actually helps us to, steer in maybe the right direction. Definitely, having one might not guarantee you success, but
Mm.
it helps to calm, I feel personally, calms my some of my nerves down, someone to
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
to. Right.
yeah.
So how would you encourage someone? Where do they look for? How do they even choose one mentor? Any advice for them?
So there are two ways of doing this, really, in my experience. One is the more formal structured system, so there are mentorship programs out there, and groups and organizations and facilities and labs that run those mentorship programs are responsible for the matchmaking. So they look at what the mentor's done and what the mentee is looking for and their mindset, and they sort of bring it together. The other, I feel, is more organic. In your life, you meet people and you see, it's a gut feeling. Of course, the other person has to be available to be the mentor for you. You could want someone to be your mentor, but he or she may be remotely interested in spending any time with you.
True.
Uh, but I feel that while structured programs work really well, you can Google them and you can find whatever area you're looking for. I feel organic mentoring goes a long way, because then that's not just about the logic and the rationale and the outcomes and the achievements and the impact. You can also talk about your emotional sort of journey, and you're in a far safer space. So my plea really is to leaders and experienced people out there to just find the time and make the time and be that person who's open to receiving mentees. Of course, you have to be very mindful. 10 people might want to be your mentees. You can't do that. I mean, time doesn't allow it. You won't be fair to anyone. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of things that happen organically. There's no really formula to that. I mean, it's really about finding people in your own social space and reaching out. Don't be shy. At times, we don't ask things because, and especially women and women entrepreneurs, and we're just like, oh, what if this? What if she says no? What if he's, I'm intimidated. You will not get it if you don't ask for it. So at least try your luck and see where it goes.
Oh, yes, yes. Ask and you shall receive, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, thanks for sharing that, structured programs are a good way to start. I think so. For a start, you have it's like a taster on,
Mm,
because they match you up with mentors. And
yeah,
then after that, you can actually go and maybe organically find mentors.
yeah.
And what I learned from my own experience is that you actually don't need to, keep to just one. You can have more than one mentors.
Absolutely. I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
It's really about a relationship. I mean, even when you're matched. So, on a lot of programs where I've mentored, I've realized during the course of the first 2 or 3 calls that I'm probably a misfit with that person, and I've sort of explained it to that person, and I've encouraged them to go and speak to other people. You also learn how to engage and have those conversations, learn how to speak your mind, articulate your doubts. It's a process. It's by learning by doing sort of thing. Till you don't do it, you really don't know what's in it for you.
Yes, yes, yeah. And that's why we actually have a special segment for all our attendees with Meet the Speakers, Mentors, Judges
Mm,
segment. So we are doing a shout out for the listeners out there. If you're interested, to speak to someone looking for advice, you're not sure
mhm,
whether or not this person is a suitable mentor, come and meet
mhm,
our panelists, our speakers, our judges, and speak to them, right? Who knows? There
mhm.
might be some spark, like you say, it takes two hands to
Yeah,
clap, right?
exactly.
Yeah,
That's fantastic.
you want a mentor, you might not want a mentee, but
Yeah.
maybe so see how it goes, right? So that's
Yeah.
the meet the speakers session is actually a fantastic way to start off. Yeah, thank
Mm.
you for sharing that. And I really want to know what motivated you to participate in our Her Courage Leader Summit, and what does it mean to you?
Well, my motivation comes from my past association with the organization, frankly. But I have to admit that I absolutely love the sort of dog headedness with which Lillian and Carol and everybody else approach courage. There are a lot of groups and a lot of platforms out there that are catering to leadership and transformation and women entrepreneurship and startups and funding and this and that and the other, but very few that are talking about softer issues, which are more important than getting the finance and the market linkages and all of that. And I very much, and that's something that's very close to my heart, as you would have gathered by now, that while we look at hard, sort of outcomes and impacts, it's very important to look at emotional intelligence and empathy. So I feel this is a great platform, and I'm just happy to be a part of that in whatever way possible.
Yes, and we are also very thankful for you to participate in the summit, right? And lastly, to end off, to wrap up the episode, is there one piece of advice about courage and leadership you could give to the next generation of women leaders? What would that be?
Wow, I did think about this a lot, and I was like, what is it that we can really tell them? They're just so different. Their mindset is so different. But the one thing that I feel really, really, needs to be embraced, especially if you want to be courageous in your day to day life, no matter how small or large the task, is that I think you need to embrace your uniqueness. The fact that you are you and whatever journey you're in is unique, it's special, it's different. You need to learn from your mistakes and challenges, but don't fixate yourself on the negative. Move on from there and practice mindfulness. It gives you the right balance between the questions that you had mentioned earlier, and we didn't quite get to it, was, this constant awareness that is needed when you're in a transformative journey, and entrepreneurship is transformative, is to monitor your skills and your outcomes and move your approach, shift around, be flexible, be adaptable. It's the joy of unexpected turns. That's it. I mean, enjoy that space, and yeah, Godspeed. All will be well.
Wow, that's really a powerful message, actually. Yes, because the generation currently today is so different from us and they have so much access to information. I do feel that the 0 to 1, usually, the very beginning of how you have that courage to actually move on to do things is really very important before we
Yeah.
talk about other things, right? Before we can talk about other things. And so many things that we can actually talk about, and it can really go on for hours. Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, this is something which is so experiential that we can all keep talking about it, and each experience is different, which is why I said, you need to embrace your uniqueness. No two situations are ever the same, for two different people, but learn from each other. Grow, look at it as an opportunity. Like I said, don't fixate yourself on the negative. Move on. That's the only way to grow and learn and develop.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we have the summit so that we can learn from each other and learn from the mentors, the speakers as well, and also the community to support. Hopefully, the mentorship will grow and then spark up a very good relationship. So thank you so much, Ambika. And that wraps up today's inspiring episode of the Summit series on Voices of Courage Asia podcast. A huge thank you to our incredible guest.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your journey, wisdom, powerful stories of courage with us. So I hope that this conversation has sparked something in you, our listeners. So if you like the episode, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want to reach out to Ambika, her links will be in our show notes. So until then, just keep on leading with courage and making a difference. Thank you.